But if they make those tackles, let's say they miss 4 tackles, like what's league average? What's the score of that game? I don't know. I liken it to John Gannon, like a kid on Christmas, got new toys, ripped them out of the package, and never read the instructions. And then if you play with them for a while, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I actually have to read the instructions.
Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. That midweek get over the hump day, Wednesday. A little different this week because it's a Monday night game against the Vikings. So we are looking back at what happened against the Lions on Sunday, starting to look ahead to the Vikings on Monday night. And here to help us do that is our buddy from down the shore, the Sports Pass 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill joins us. MG, how you be?
I'm doing well, guys. I'm trying to find the best place to kind of situate. Everybody's got like these cool backdrops and stuff. I'm getting a studio built in my house, but it's not ready yet. So I'm like outside, inside. I don't know where to go here yet.
I like it. I like it. It's a nice day out. Porch. I like the feel today, Mike.
How long can I get away with being on the porch outside for these down the shore? It's a little nippy out here today. I got to be honest.
I like it. It's been so hot, Miami, I've been there. Yeah, everywhere it's humid, it seems. Humid. So enjoy the nice day. Enjoy the porch. What you can enjoy, though, Mike, is the Eagles' defense, or at least for one particular Sunday in Detroit. So what is your DEPCON level? How high we going? DEPCON, actually, it's backwards, DEPCON. Yeah. So DEPCON 1 is the worst. DEPCON 5 is the easiest. So,
on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it a 2 on my show.
Ugh.
Now, I am generally a pretty even keel guy. I think you tweeted out, John, they were last in the league in tackling. Yeah. They missed the most tackles. So I asked this question to myself. And they might not be a good tackling team, and that could be a big issue. But if they make those tackles, let's say they miss 4 tackles, like what's league average? What's the score of that game? I don't know. I liken it to John Gannon, like a kid on Christmas, got new toys, ripped them out of the package, and never read the instructions. And then if you play with them for a while, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I actually have to read the instructions. I think he's going to figure these guys out a little bit better. I think he's stuck with some of his guys. They got up 17. They thought they were going to run. And I actually told you this yesterday, John, I think. I give Dan Campbell and the Lions credit. They got up 17, and they stayed with the run. Their offensive line's the strength of that team, and they stayed with it. A lot of teams won't do that, and I think the Eagles took for granted that they were going to throw the ball, and they didn't and got gassed. I thought so much aggressive penetration up the middle, and the Lions attacked them there all day long, it felt like. So I think you watch that. I think one of the themes moving forward is the Lions have a pretty good offensive line. I thought they dominated up front, and that was why they were in that game. Moving forward, I don't know that many teams are going to have a line that's going to allow them to run the ball with such success. So that's why I'm kind of not so panicked. I was disappointed. I didn't like the way he called the game. If you're not getting pressure, you got to find it from somewhere. So it's a week-to-week thing. If you're not getting pressure this week, you got to dial it up. He didn't do that. That was disappointing. But overall, I'm not overly concerned with their defense.
It's more than even a week-to-week thing. It's a it's a half-to-half thing. It's a quarter-to-quarter thing. It's a series-to-series thing. And I'm with you. I'm not sure that Jonathan Gannon adjusted enough. Johnny Mac made this point in our first segment, and it is at least, I think, worthy of consideration. Hassan Reddick, for the position he plays, is a little undersized. Kazir White, for the position he plays, is a little undersized. Gardner Johnson, for the position he plays, the new position that he plays, is a little undersized. That maybe Gannon's scheme is okay. It's just that the Eagles weren't able to win at the point of contact because they're a little undersized. That scare you at all?
Yeah, and it's funny because the one play that Reddick made that really got highlighted, if you watch the game, was on a run play. And it's like, that's great, but I don't want to see him sticking his nose in there and making tackles on the end. I want to see him getting at the passer. And I'm thinking, if he's playing end to stop the run, he's a small guy to be doing that all season long. They kept highlighting on the broadcast, and John, you were at the game, so I don't know if you saw this, but Jody, they kept talking about how great of a tackler Kaiser White is. He's a short tackler. That's what he does so well. Well, that's good if he can get his nose in there. He was having trouble getting off blocks, and I didn't see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson flying around making tackles from the safety spot. I saw Marcus Epps doing a pretty good job of getting in there. I think he had 10 tackles, but you're right. I think a lot of these guys had trouble, and could be a byproduct of, I thought the Lions had a really well-designed run game. I thought they just executed. The Eagles, their offensive line didn't execute for a quarter. They looked like they were all out of whack. The Lions, they were in concert, and they got to their blocks. They won the point of attack. So, again, could it be that the Lions people didn't – I know, John, you harped on this a lot. Their line's pretty good, and that could have been a factor of the Eagles not getting off their blocks, not being able to tackle. I think we got to somewhat give the Lions a little bit of credit. And, quite frankly, if the Lions had a quarterback that was not Jared Goff, we might be thinking about that team a little differently.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, been a while.
As Sean McVay's exoskeleton, so to speak, his joystick. But you're right. I mean, that might be the best pair of tackles the Eagles see all season. I mean, people aren't going to believe it, but that might be the best pair of tackles because they're not going to face their own that they see all season.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. It was a really difficult matchup on the edge for them. Ragnow's an all-pro center. He was a really difficult matchup, and he wasn't even healthy. So some of that is baked in. But you were saying you don't know what the score would have been if they tackled. I know what the score. They would have blew him out. They still would have blown him out because
that's my intuition. That's my intuition. I just, who knows?
So if the 50-yard gain from DeAndre Swift turns into 20, you say, all right, well, that's not good, but it's not terrible. If the 25-yard screen where there's 2 missed tackles, that gets caught for 5 yards. I mean, yeah, the Eagles are lapping, but the one point you point out, and Nick Sirianni admitted this as well as Jonathan Gannon, they did expect him to throw when they got down 17. And that's typically what teams in this league do. They give up. So you do have to give Dan Campbell a little bit of credit. And I do think people tend to not realize, hey, the other team's trying too. And that's kind of what happened. But when we're moving forward with this defense from the personnel standpoint, and specifically, I'm going to talk to you about the defensive tackles, Mike, because let's face it, Jonathan Gannon isn't very popular in Philadelphia right now, and everybody wants to see Jordan Davis on the field. But if you're a defensive coordinator in this league, even if Fletcher Cox shows up and he's not playing well, and Javon Hargrave is showing up and he's playing terrible, how do you bench those guys in week 1 in the second quarter? Is that possible in the modern NFL as a defensive coordinator?
No, it's not, and it's not going to happen. And again, it goes back to if you had high expectations for this defense, part of those expectations were built into Hargrave and Fletcher Cox being pretty formidable players. Is Fletcher at the apex of his career? No, but if you were excited about this defense, anybody out there watching, it's probably factored in that you thought Fletcher Cox was at least going to be a good player, maybe not a great player anymore. So, no, I don't see them moving forward just flat out saying, all right, you're out of the rotation. Now, you might slowly see those snaps get scaled back a little bit, but I find it interesting that last year, and you mentioned this yesterday, John, about Hargrave, he was a sack master early. They kind of doubled him. They started to put the attention to him, and Fletcher Cox still didn't really, but he had an okay year last year, but he didn't get, it was, well, he's getting doubled and triple teamed. Well, then they started to put the attention to Hargrave, and I didn't see Fletcher's production jump off the page all of a sudden. So you have to go in with the real understanding that those two guys might not be the same players they were even a year ago, and how that changes things up. So to kind of circle back, John Gannon might have to make the tough decision of, I need to start playing some of these younger guys more. Otherwise, he will be going down the road of the new Howie Roseman and getting everybody's ire. You don't want that.
And he's not for me, it's a simple decision. If we're talking about Hargrave and Cox, you can skim them back a play or two here. Marlon Tui.
Well, wait, real quick, Jody and John. How about late in the game? It was like the fourth quarter, late in the game, and he had Marlon and Milton Williams on the field together.
Yeah.
Like in a key situation, I'm thinking this is an interesting time to have those two guys on the field on a pretty important drive.
They were playing better in that game.
Well,
you got to give him credit.
So I'm wondering if he noticed it like in game. I might need these younger guys out there for these key series. I thought that was pretty interesting.
It was, but again, Marlon Tuipulotu, not Jordan Davis. You didn't use a first-round pick picking up Marlon. And I know that he looked good in preseason. Shoot, I was glad to see it. That was one of the residual benefits of the Eagles' less is more philosophy. Marlon got to play a lot, and he got to flash a lot. No, he's not Jordan Davis. In any game where you check the stats afterward, and he's played more snaps than Jordan Davis, I'm sorry. I can't sign off on that if I'm the defensive coordinator. You talk this kid up a blue streak. You made the aggressive move to get him. He's got to be on the field. I know it's a guessing game. Every single play is a guessing game between one team's offensive coordinator and the other team's defensive coordinator. Well, Jonathan, you got outguessed.
Yeah.
And if he took a couple verbal hits for it yesterday, he needs to take even more. And, oh, by the way, there's got to be a change this week. Can't just acknowledge it. Oh, we may have had the wrong part. No. Change it this week. Minnesota Vikings. I want to see more of their future defensive tackle than Marlon. And I'm sorry, Marlon, I like you, but your resume is what it is. They got to get Davis on the field more this week.
Yeah, and you wonder if the game is not 17 points, is he out there more? I mean, do they just strictly look at him? And you guys have probably seen the stat, 2.9 yards when he was on the field, 10 yards when he wasn't.
Right.
But, of course, when he's on the field, they're rushing for 3rd and 2. So they're getting 2 yards. I mean, they're only trying to get a yard or two on a short yardage situation. So, he did his job. But you're right, Jody. Did you draft a guy, target a guy that was literally going to come in to play short yardage and goal line situations? That you got to scratch your head out a little bit. So, yeah, this goes back to I opened the present and I didn't read the instructions. How do I figure out a way to get him on the field more? Like, hey, I like this part of the toy, but I got to figure out how to use it. I got to find ways to get him, because if you're up 17, you're probably putting guys you think can get to the pass, that can rush the passer. Yeah. Maybe they don't think he's that guy right now.
And they don't. And that was part of it. Yeah, I think that is. Real quick, Zach McPherson, NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. So the Eagles get an award. We'll get to Zach a little bit later, but I do want to finish up on these defensive tackles. I think this circles back. Part of it is I've talked about this with both of you. When you asked me about the run pass ratio, I say, tell me what the score is in the, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and I'll tell you what the run pass ratio is. Same thing with snap counts. Again, Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon both admitted they expected Detroit to throw the football, become pass exclusively when they were down 17 points. Maybe they didn't react quickly enough to the fact that they weren't, but they had the pass rushers on the field. So that skews Jordan Davis's snap counts a little bit. If they're in a more traditional game with Minnesota on Monday night, I think it'll go up. But you do have to keep a little bit an eye on the conditioning, because he's not used to playing a lot. He didn't play a lot at Georgia. So I do think, obviously we talk about the Eagles. They don't do anything as a team in the summer much. So you don't have great conditioning from that aspect. To expect this kid to go out and play 50, 60 snaps on week one, nobody else did it that well.
Johnny, I don't think anybody's saying 50 or 60. I think people are saying 30 or 31 rather than 22. So we're talking about 8 more plays.
But okay, so we'll use that number, right? 30-31. We'll use that number. If they don't have the pass rushers, if they don't have that mentality, and it's a traditional game, he probably gets to 30-31. In other words, if they're playing the run more and not thinking they're coming, they're down 17, that fixes the problem. This is Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. So people talk to me about the defense as a whole. Before you get the scheme, which again, half of the league uses the same Vic Fangio scheme. They tackle. The scheme is fine. They didn't tackle. Simplest explanation.
Well, right. That's
Same
the thing
thing with Jordan Davis.
If they make tackles, are we having any of this conversation and they win 38-17? What's our reaction today? It's almost better that the game is 38-35 so we have something to bitch and complain about. Because if it's 38-17, Jody's right. They blow them out, and you guys are having a boring week getting ready for a Monday night game with an extra day. But because the game was close, and quite frankly, I got to give the Lions more. I got to go back to that. You were there, John. I watched on TV, and that place was loud for an entire quarter. They just didn't. They were, and I don't think the Eagles were prepared for that level of energy. You play no preseason games. You haven't done anything since the year before. They had a very light summer. You walk into a place that's shaking. I think the Eagles looked like they were not ready for that, and I give them credit for not buckling, getting off the mat, and resettling them. They could have easily just been like, we were not ready for this, and let the Lions run away from them and have an embarrassing week one loss, like a lot of teams do in week one. The Denver Broncos, one of them, they went into Seattle. That place rocked all night long, and Denver never got it back into that game. They just could not shake it. The Eagles not only got back into the game, they had a 17-point lead.
Yeah, see, that's why I'm not buying it. They were up 31-14. And I'm sure, and John can firsthand attribute this, when they went up 31-14, the place is not as loud as when the opening kickoff came down.
True.
The air is somewhat out of the balloon. You're up by 17 points. You have to get your right defense on the field. Maybe you misevaluate. You didn't believe they were going to continue to run together. And you let the Lions walk back into the game. I can't put too much emphasis on, the house of horrors that was Ford Field. No. You played bad, Eagles. Your defense wasn't prepared to hit. You weren't prepared to tackle. I didn't love your rotation on the defensive line. I'm not going to go, it was so difficult because it was in the Lions' house, the Lions' den.
Well, and that doesn't even matter.
They were down 31-14.
Well, and that doesn't even matter for the defense. When the defense is on the field, the crowd is trying to be a little bit more quiet for their particular offense, as Darius Slay pointed out. All I'm saying, and all I've been saying, is that the offense had a really, really difficult problem with it. This first thing A.J. Brown said when he came out and talked to us after the game, he said, we couldn't hear anything. We couldn't communicate. We couldn't do anything. First thing he said, Nick Sirianni brought it up. Jalen Hurts brought it up. They had 12 men on the field penalties, 2 delay of game penalties. The offense had a really difficult time with it. And, by the way, they still scored 31 points. So, all of that is a positive. But they were definitely not ready for it. I just brought it up because now people are saying, well, if you give up 35 points to the Detroit Lions, you're going to get destroyed by Minnesota. This is a different environment. This is the home opener in Philadelphia.
And Minnesota's offensive line is a problem for them. There's where each week is different. It's like, okay, I give up 35. Yeah, but this team's personnel is way different. Detroit struggles at the skill position, although the kid Swift is very good. Hawkinson's he's sure-handed. He's not explosive. They don't really have a game-breaking receiver, and the quarterback's average. Minnesota's got a good quarterback. He's not great. I'm not like Kirk Cousins is like an all-pro
better than people think.
But he has had a lot of success against Philly. They've got 2 really good receivers. The running back is dynamic, but their line is a problem, and we see it all the time with them. They're good. They're 9-8 because they beat the bad teams, and then they play. Although last week they handled a team in Green Bay that people thought was going to be good. I wasn't one of them. I'm not a big 2 teams I don't like this year. 3: Tennessee, San Francisco, Green Bay. But Minnesota took care of business in that game and looked pretty good in doing so. But I think look, if we think the Eagles' defensive line is a strength, this is a week that they should win up front.
Well, the interior. The Vikings finally have good tackles. Probably not quite as good as Detroit, but Christian Darrisaw is a first-round pick. He looks like a player already. Brian O'Neill's one of the Delaware guy, by the way. One of the Martin Frank. That's a shout out to Martin Frank. He's one of the best right tackles in the NFL. So they do have tackles, but the interior really bad, and it's been bad for years. Garrett Bradbury's terrible. So this is where Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, they got to get on track. And I mean immediately Monday night, because this is a game where they should have a big advantage on the interior. And if you don't whip Minnesota up front, yeah, I mean, Cook's going to kill you. Jefferson's going to kill you. Cousins is going to kill you. Thielen's going to kill you. But I think people, don't understand playing in Detroit with that crowd is going to be different than playing in Philadelphia with your crowd.
Sure. I mean, no question about it. Now, again, it goes back. And I think in the end, look, Detroit, they're Detroit. Our whole lives, all we know is Detroit is been down rotten.
Yeah.
They won 3 out of their last 6. Not great. But I think we talked about it last week. You can see the culture is changing there. The first step in becoming a team that moves in the right direction is getting the culture changed. I thought we saw it with the Giants. I love that hire of Daboll. And look, are they going to win 9-10 games? No. But at least in a one-score game now, they feel like we can win this. We can. Now, they got to learn how to do it. Where in the past, those teams just have no shot. They just didn't have talent. They have the wrong culture. I think the Lions at the end of the year, we're going to look back to this conversation and say, man, that team won 7-8 games. They're moving in the right direction. Is that great? No. But to get a road win in a very unpredictable week 1, I think you got to feel pretty good about.
All right, for you two Lion guys. Sorry, not buying in.
Lions offensive line guy.
Hard knocks or not.
I didn't see any hard knocks, by the way.
The Lions should get a win this week, right? Carson doesn't
They're
handle
favored for
the
the
pressure.
first
Wentz
time.
coming to town.
They are
that could be
favored for
way
the
more
first
than
time.
he can handle. The Lions should be 1-1 by the time we get to Sunday afternoon, right, guys?
The Lions are favored for the first time since November of 2020. How about that?
Yeah.
Jody Mack, you're a betting man. Come on, give me a 6-pack of picks. Put the Lions in there.
Oh, I'll take the Commanders right now.
Now, Jody, come on. You have to admit that offensive line is pretty good.
The Lions' offensive line is very good. No, yeah. I'm not trying to downgrade their areas of strength, but
that's about it.
I'm on Ron St. Brown.
I thought they were I like their play calling. I like their play design. I thought they did a really good. There was a play the Eagles ran, hated it. And I said, the play design on this play, terrible. They have a play on the goal line area. They pitch it to the weak side of the field. They got the running back as the lead blocker. I'm thinking, why wouldn't you have a guy pull out and let him be the lead blocker on that? If you're pitching out there inside the 5-yard line, you got to have somebody get out there. They got the running back lead blocking. And, of course, that play got blown up. Meanwhile, Detroit, they had guys moving all over. I thought their play design and execution with their offensive line was who's that? Brian Johnson that calls their plays. I thought he did a really good job.
Brian's the Eagles quarterback.
Oh, Brian Johnson's the Eagles, yes.
Let's talk about the offense real quick before we lose you, Mike, because everybody's harping on the defense. The offense, look, they scored 31 points. Jalen was great with the off-schedule stuff. The one thing that's stuck out to people was DeVonta Smith not getting a touch. Targeted 4 times, but they weren't able to get him the football. I've been telling people this for a while, and if they were listening to Shane Steichen, which not a lot of people do, I was surprised Shane gave this up. Somebody asked him is it your job to get everyone involved, which I asked Nick Sirianni the day before. Do you ever want quarterback Jalen Hurts to be aware of the distribution? And Steichen's answer was no. I don't need him to worry about that. Really, wherever the ball is going, it's first read, second read. That's it. He goes through the progressions, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's the coaching staff, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen that has to be the one to be disciplined and say, all right, A.J. Brown's progression 1, Dallas Goedert's progression 2, but this play, I got to get DeVonta involved. Quez Watkins didn't touch the ball either. I got to get Quez involved. Zach Pascal got a touch. Nice little nifty play. Is it an issue that people don't understand what's going on with this offense and they expect Jalen Hurts to have these full field progressions and be Joe Montana in 1985 or whatever?
No. Do you think in Minnesota, Justin Jefferson had 11 targets. The next guy, Thielen, who's pretty darn good, had 4.
Yep.
You think they care that Justin Jefferson – look, if my best player is going to get 13 targets and you're not going to change your coverage, I'll throw it to my best player the whole damn game. Why would I not throw the ball to Randy Moss if they're going to let me keep throwing it to him? Why would I not throw the ball to Terrell Owens, Jerry Rice? If you're going to let me throw it to that guy, I'll throw it to him 20 times. I don't understand. I get it. DeVonta Smith was a first-round pick. We want him to do well. But guess what? If the game plan for that week, and look, there could be a week we're saying, why didn't Brown get any? Well, they covered Brown differently, and now Smith got 11 targets. Over 17 weeks, the ebbs and flows of your targets are going to go changing. Now, John, you mentioned on my show astutely yesterday, if teams keep covering Brown like this and you throw him the ball 13 times, and by the way, DeVonta Smith had a ball thrown to him. He dropped it. It hit him right in the freaking 6. But so if he catches that ball, who knows? That being said, is DeVonta Smith going to be happy that his role is the 4-target guy? That might be something you need to manage down the road. But if you're going to give me 13 targets to A.J. Brown after what I saw, I'll throw it to him 13 times every week.
Yeah, that's one of those questions I look at week 1. Okay, let's not overreact.
Listen,
one
Jefferson,
week. Let's see what this the dispersal is this upcoming week and the week after. Give me at least 3 games in before we start worrying about that too much. And the way Johnny described it, here's what would scare me. If they did overreact because you want to depict your plays and play calling by what the defense is doing. You don't want to go, let me call a play because DeVonta is the number 1 option on this one, and he hasn't gotten a pass going his way yet. No. You got to believe you know what the defense is going to do and send in the play that you think is going to work best against that, not what's going to best balance the touch scale on the overall offense. You can't fall prey to something like that. You have to stay in the moment if you're the play caller.
And, John, I would ask you because you were there, and I didn't get a chance to watch the All 22. I don't even know if it's out yet. First week, Rust, man. I don't know what day that comes out yet. But on those blitzes, because they set guys, and he took off 17 times, and people are complaining about that. Did he have a hot read? Was there a guy that he could have just saw the blitz and said, okay, you're coming from there? Or were those runs out of necessity?
Most of them are out of necessity. He does, when I say it's 1 read, 2 read, there's really 3. He's always got an outlet, but an outlet for Jalen Hurts is worse than Jalen Hurts running the ball, at least from the perspective of if he dumps it off to the running back might get 5, 6, 7 yards. He's getting, big chunks. So I don't have an issue with that at all. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts won that game for the Eagles. We always talk about quarterbacks, can he win a game for you, or are you winning despite the quarterback? Well, Eagles fans just watched the quarterback go win a game for them. They might not like how he did it, but he won the game for them. And maybe you got to get over, I always say this, fans want blitzing on defense. They want that. They want high-powered passing offense. As does Jeffrey Lurie. Isn't it about getting a win? Get the win. Get the win.
Hey, look, Buffalo won with no blitzes. Detroit sent the house and lost.
All right, Mike, last one for me. And again, this is what we do. We take a 38-35 win and nitpick the issues and the problems rather than emphasize what went right and the fact that it ended up as a W. But I was screaming at my TV here in the house watching again. 10 penalties. And Derek Barnett didn't have one of them. Best of luck rest of your career, Derek B.
I like
more
that one.
so because they're just not a focused enough team. They're not a disciplined enough team. The coaching staff didn't prep them under the organizational banner of less is more. We're not going to practice. We're not going to hit. I'm sorry. It didn't cost them the game. So I'm not getting overly worked, but it's a little bit of a red flag to me. Why 10 penalties?
How many,
ready
did
to
they
put
have
the
any,
blame?
how many false starts did they have? I don't
know, but I will say memory, just going back, they were one of the most penalized teams in history for a quarter of the season last year, were they not? And they kind of got out of that. Could that be a byproduct again of no preseason?
Well, here right off the bat, I got first quarter here. So already they had two delay games. They had two.
I felt like there was a lot of getting out of the huddle and the play in late.
Yes. I asked Shane about that yesterday. He said no, it was an issue. But so I know off the bat they had two 12-man penalties. They had two delay of game penalties. In the first quarter, they had two false starts. So that's 6 right there, Jody. So the noise was a big part of the penalties. And they were, pre-snap stuff, and they got to correct that. But that, again, you're in Philadelphia this week. That should be corrected. That shouldn't be that much of an issue. So if you have a 4-penalty game, that's not that bad. All 6 of those penalties were due to the noise.
John, are the Eagles screwed? Because I'm pretty damn sure they got to play 8 road games this year. So any game that they play on the road, we're going to just dismiss and excuse penalties for jumping off sides. Not getting the communications in time. You got to play games on the road in the NFL, John.
It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. You do have to play games on the road. Like last year, the Eagles played a game on the road in Detroit. There were 40,000 people there. This is what I tried to impart to you, Jody. It was different. There was no issue. There was no silent counts last time they were in Detroit. 0 issue. If you go play the Los Angeles Rams, if you go play the Los Angeles Chargers on the road, you have 0 issues as the road team. There are certain environments in the NFL that
they're
playing,
really and on the road this year, they're playing in a lot of those environments. They're in Houston, they're in Arizona, they're in Indianapolis, which I guess, depending on how but I was shocked at the level of energy in that building. Because as you said, John, they hadn't sold out, since like 2017, I think it was. And they were relentless for, I couldn't believe the energy they kept. I was like, my God, these guys are they not getting tired? Like, normally it's loud when you first start a game. And then it kind of just, they were, them in Seattle the other night, it was like a college basketball game.
Yeah, Seattle's one of those places. Kansas City.
It was like a college basketball game when the guy who has the ball gets booed every time he touches it. Then he passes it, and they stop booing him. They pass it back to him, and they start booing again. I couldn't believe the amount of times they kept booing Russell Wilson. I was like, these guys are getting some credit for me, man.
12 man. That's why they call it the 12 man. Seattle's one of those places. But yeah, obviously talent. I'm just saying, if you ignore something so obvious, it doesn't do any good. So if you're worried about it this week, and you're going to say, should there be delay of game penalties this week at home? No. Then you should rip the you-know-what out of them. Should there be 12 men in huddle penalties? No. Should there be false starts? No. If there are, I'll be here on Birds 365 ripping the hell out of the Eagles for doing it. So but it's understandable.
The 6 is coming down to what? 1 or 2? Because the Eagles
it should come down to
understanding the crowd.
It should come down, way down. Pre-snap penalties should come way down.
Quite frankly, right. You shouldn't have multiple delay of the games. They had to call timeout twice in the first half before late in the second quarter because they weren't ready.
Yeah, they were getting out of the huddle incredibly late.
Yeah.
Incredibly late. 7-8 seconds left on the play clock. We were saying it. They're out of the huddle. Look at and with a young quarterback, I think people forget Jalen Hurts is still a young quarterback. Yeah, they were late. That's a Nick.
By the way, guys, the Lions, they got the kid Williams from Alabama. He didn't play either.
Right.
That might be their difference-making weapon down the line. That team, if they get good quarterback play, we might again look back at this week and say, that team's different. I think that team.
Well, you don't have to worry about good quarterback play.
No,
quarterback play.
Not happening anytime soon. And can we potentially attribute late getting out of the huddle because it takes that much time for Howie to contemplate what he should tell Nick and Nick to contemplate what he should tell Shane? And that's a lot. The telephone game get a little long there. We got to try and speed that up a little bit. Maybe they'll all be quicker at home this week.
He needs the AC Slater big cell phone there and buzz it down to the field. No, I mean, I think that's definitely right, guys, that was a problem. Like, I'm sitting here going, what's going on? Like, they're not getting out of the huddle. They kept snapping the ball with zeros, or guys were going in motion with 2 seconds on the play clock. You're like, this just doesn't look crisp. It doesn't. They did not look crisp or right probably until midway through the second quarter when they finally seemed like they settled into that game on the offensive side.
And I was wondering about that. Did we bring this up yesterday, John? I thought we might have brought it up with one of our guests. Like, Jalen's waving a guy with 2 seconds to go on the clock.
Yeah.
And I'm going, no.
AJ Brown.
Johnny Mac's getting what he wants. The Eagles are actually using a little deception. They're actually using motion. Guys are moving, but they shouldn't be moving with 2 seconds left on the play clock.
2 seconds on the play clock. AJ Brown's going in motion. You're thinking, what's going on here? Like, no, they got to clean that up. But, again, I agree with John. If you're at home and you have those problems, now, Jody, your question would become a concern.
Oh, yeah. Then you rip the you-know-what out of them if they have those same
Gill
problems.
will be back with us next Wednesday to do just that. We'll see if we're ripping or if we're tearing or if we're praising the Eagles because of another win and off to a 2-0 start. MG always a play. Oh, one quickie. West Virginia got a team they can beat this week?
Ugly. I think they played Virginia Tech. Oh, yeah, Virginia Tech's not very good. That's right.
Why do I think they got like Towson this week?
Oh, no, you're right. It's Towson.
I think they got a layup game this week.
You're right.
Got to get that first.
Towson and then Virginia Tech on a Thursday night. Yeah.
All right. You get the layup and then you're ready for
these smaller schools are no longer layups, man. The Georgia Southerns, the App States of the world, they're coming after you.
Yeah, no.
There's still layups for Alabama. They play them.
And by the way, that's just Nebraska sucks. That isn't Georgia Southern's jumped into the foray. No, Nebraska's just terrible. Gill, always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks for jumping on board. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, boys.
Thanks, Mike.
Gill from the Sports Pass, 97.3 down the shore. Jumps on with us weekly here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. We got Paul Domowitz going to join us about 20 minutes from now. So you want to stay with us here on Birds 365.